Hi, everybody. My name is Amanda Bustamante, and I'm an Assistant Director of Admissions here at Northwestern. Really excited to share with you that this month, the Office of Undergraduate Admissions launched the Purple Prism series. And so this is a three-part identity-based series centering on resources, experiences, and voices of Northwestern community members, of which I have two today. And so students will go ahead and take over our Instagram accounts to show a day in their lives, answer questions, and explore significant spaces on campus as in Evanston and Chicago communities. So we're also offering this discussion to feature Black and African American student experiences and share resources, communities, and opportunities. And so while there's no one experience for a Black African American student at Northwestern, we're really excited to hear about Kayla's and Janea's experience here on our campus. So I'm going to go ahead and have them introduce themselves.
All right, I can go first. Hi, you guys. My name is Kayla. I'm a third year here at Northwestern. I'm studying biology and psychology on the pre-med track, and I'm also getting a minor in business. I'm from Northville, Michigan, and some other fun facts about me. I used to do ice skating in high school, and I really love baking and cooking right now, and those are some things that I find ways to do around campus as well.
I'm Janea. I'm also a third year from Detroit, Michigan. I'm studying journalism and I'm planning to also double major in anthropology, so that's really exciting. I also enjoy baking and cooking, and that's something I've been doing more of since I've been home and since stay-at-home orders have been in place. So that's something I've been learning to do and something that I really, really enjoy.
Perfect. So let's go ahead and get started. My first question was in regards to your background and your high school experience. What led you to Northwestern? I know we often ask students why Northwestern, so that takes you kind of back to your junior and senior year, making those decisions, filling out that college lists and things of that nature. So can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, so I came from a very small private school. That's where I went for high school. And it was a very white school. So there were only a few Black kids, only a few students of color. So that experience was definitely made me more, I feel like more adapted to pretty white spaces just because that's what I was in every day. So I wasn't really too concerned about going to a predominantly white school like Northwestern. And I think that knowing that I didn't have a college or a high school experience that was very centered around my ethnicity or my race, I really was looking for a school that did have a stronger Black community and a school that did have those resources for Black students. And something that I did do while I was in high school, I talked to another friend that I had who was a student at Northwestern who also came from my high school, which was just a great coincidence to be able to talk to her about her experience as a Black woman at Northwestern and see what resources were available and what community she found. So that was something that I really enjoyed. And I think knowing having those connections really kind of drew me to Northwestern just because I was able to talk to someone in a way that I wasn't able to at another school. But Northwestern has so many great things about it, and it was just something I really making that connection was also something that really sealed the deal too.
Yeah, so similar to Janae, my high school is also pretty white space, and so I also felt like I was more prepared for coming to a predominantly white school like Northwestern. I actually moved when I was in 8th grade from a school that did have more Black students, so it was still a predominantly white space, but the largest minority would have been Black students. And then I moved to Northville, which the largest minority probably would have been Asian or Indian communities, which is totally fine. But I feel like my whole life, I've been exposed to all different types of culture and communities, which I think is something that I really value a lot. And so coming into Northwestern and just having so many more people on campus than ever were in my high school, you're still exposed to so many different communities, even if it is a predominantly white school. Additionally, just personal background, my mom is Black and my dad is Haitian American. And so it was also really cool getting to come to Northwestern and have Caribbean clubs on campus and getting to see that, because that was something I had only experienced if we like go to like visit my grandparents or something like that. That is just me, I guess.
Yeah, and so what ultimately led you all to Northwestern, or why Northwestern?
Yeah, so Northwestern has like a really, really great journalism program. And like in high school, I knew that I really wanted to pursue journalism. And so that was something that just like immediately like I fell in love with about Northwestern. But also the quarter system, just being able to not have to limit myself to only taking journalism classes or only taking whatever study of classes, something that I really liked because I have a lot of different interests. And so still being able to take like African American studies courses or like musicology or like just like really fun classes like that that don't really have a lot of like prerequisites and aren't limited to only people with that major was something that I really liked and um, something that I knew I wouldn't be able to get anywhere else.
So I have like, I love this question. I have such a long answer to it too. So sorry about that in advance. So when I was trying to pick my colleges as a high school student, I had a list of things that I wanted. I wanted to go to a research school because I knew that I want to do research at some point in my life. Like I'm pre-med, I need that for med school, and it's just something in general that interests me. I wanted to go to a school that was in the Midwest because I'm from Michigan and I love Michigan, but I still want to be like kind of close to home. But still like not like still outside of the state that I like grew up in my whole life. I also knew that I wanted to go to a school that was near a big city because I've always lived in the suburbs and I really wanted like that experience. I feel like college is a really formative time. Like being exposed to something like a big city is something that you really want. Um, and then I also wanted somewhere where I could meet like some of my like forever friends. Hopefully, like I've had great friends growing up my whole life, but I wanted to like continue that trend and go somewhere where I could meet great people. So Northwestern seemed to like check all those boxes. Oh, and I also wanted somewhere that was like a great school that would prepare me for med school. Also, that was like one of the big things on my list. And so Northwestern is a fantastic school. Like we all know that. You can like look at our stats and see that. It definitely checked all those boxes for me, but so do other schools. Northwestern is not the only competitive university around. But then what sold it for me actually is that I was so fortunate enough to be able to visit the school for like 2 weeks over the summer before my senior year as a part of a summer program that I was involved in. So we got to stay on campus. They gave us student ID cards, which we call them wild cards here, like wildcats, wild cards. We think we're very clever. But they gave us one of these wild cards. I felt like a student. I was like able to go around campus, like swipe into the buildings. We lived in a dorm. Um, and that was amazing. Like, and what I learned from that was that our campus is so beautiful. It's definitely somewhere where I was like, I could see myself here for the next 4 years. But what also really sold it for me was the people. So as a part of the camp, we did get to talk to a few students. We got to see even the students who were here over the summer, like outside playing together, like playing volleyball on the beach, having a great time. Got to talk to some professors, and it sounds super cheesy, but what really sold it for me was the people. Like I could see here that there was such great community and such great passion for learning and just like for career and like life and stuff like that. Everybody here is interested in something and actively wants to go after that. And that was really my biggest takeaway. And that's ultimately what made me seal the deal. Like, okay, I'm definitely need to apply to this school.
Thank you both for sharing. And at admissions, we love to tell prospective students that at Northwestern, you're not only learning from your professors, but you're also learning from your classmates as well. Like Kayla mentioned, just people loving to learn and loving to share that. So thanks for touching on that. You both have been on campus now for a few years, and I'm sure you're pros at navigating the quarter system, figuring out doing laundry on campus, just, picking out your classes. But it probably didn't start off that way. So can you tell us a little bit about how you overcome obstacles since your first year on campus?
Yeah, I think this is a great question. So first of all, coming to campus, it definitely was a big like shock. Like I've been away from home before, but like the actual fact of like being independent and like being more independent on how you choose to spend your time and how you choose to make friendships and stuff like that. Um, that was something that was like super difficult coming to college, like figuring out how to really balance all of these little things that you really never thought you needed to. And even like some simple things, like when you're at home, like you can kind of be taken care of in a way by like your parents or by like your siblings or even by some of your high school friends who've like known you your whole life because they've really like adjusted to your personality. Um, it was also crazy coming to a school that's so competitive. And I feel like a lot of Northwestern students are at the top of their class in high school, and then they come here. And if you have all these people who are top of their class, like there's still going to be some like stratification there again. And so you have to see like where you fall, and you have to like be okay with it. And so it's part of learning. Like one of the biggest things I had to learn my freshman year was not to compare myself to my roommate or to my friends or to whoever was sitting next to me in class. Like you're here to get your own education and to advance your own life. And it's super fun to hang out with these people while you're here and have a great time in that respect. But really like learning that it's about the individual, and just make sure you're doing things that make you happy. And if you're like studying something, or if you're involved in something that like doesn't bring you joy, or it brings you so much stress that it's like too much, you need to figure out a way to like adjust or change things. So that was one of the bigger things I had to learn in my freshman year.
Similarly to Kayla, I also had to like learn what I wanted my freshman year. I think something that I had to like figure out and something I had to learn to deal with was like spending more time by myself, because in high school you're always around your friends and your friends have classes with you and you have lunch together, and then I go home and I be with my family. So I was always around other people. And so even something like eating alone by myself in the dining hall was something that I was like, oh my gosh, like, do I not have friends? But I had friends. And it's just our schedules were not always aligned in the same way that they are in high school. And that was something that was like pretty hard for me to just like get used to spending that time alone, and knowing like if someone's not with me, that doesn't mean they don't like me, but we just like have our own schedules. And that was something that was a different type of independence that I didn't have before, and just doing things because I wanted to do them and not because like me and my friends are going to do this together. And that was something that I had to figure out what I really wanted, and like the things I wanted to study and the clubs I wanted to join, because I was taking a lot of like leaps of faith and doing things on my own for the first time, which is something that looking back, it was difficult to do, but it was something that I really enjoyed. And I think taking those chances my first year has really shaped the rest of my college career.
I agree. I also feel like time in college moves so differently than like time in high school. Like first of all, like the sheer amount of time that you're spending with people is just insane. Like people become really fast friends, which like sometimes that works and like sometimes it doesn't. But you're just able to spend so much time with people, because when you're in high school, like you might have a class with someone and then you might not afterwards, and then at the end of the day, like everybody goes home and you spend time in your own house. But here you're like living with all of your friends, like they live in the dorm like next to you or like across from you, or you guys like all go to like someone's dorm and like hang out, or somebody's like house or apartment or something like that. So like I feel like friendships and relationships when you get to campus are so strange, because when you first get there, everybody's like clinging to whatever friendship that they're trying to make, and then that might not necessarily last, or you might like spend a lot of time and then realize, oh, like maybe this isn't perfect. um, so yeah, I think time just in general, like it felt like the fastest and also slowest time period in my life also, because it felt like classes were moving really fast, like friendships were moving really fast, but then you're still here for so long. When you get there, it's like it feels like it's been so long since I've been home. So that was also like a strange adjustment as well.
Yeah, I also think that because you're spending like you're always around people, and if you want to see your friends at like 10 p.m., you can go see your friends at 10 p.m. It's not like, oh, I can't like drive to your house. Like it's like you walk 2 doors down and you're with your friends. And I think that is something that really makes those relationships so much stronger, because you're like really just going through it all with your friends. And so it's just like, you know, someone for like a week and you can become like really close in a week because of like one thing that happens, and you're spending so much time together, and it's really fun. And I think that's something that I've enjoyed a lot about college, is just like how close you can get with people in what is really like a short amount of time.
I agree. I also feel like I'm someone who really values family. And like at home, I would spend so much, like I love my brother so much. Like we'd spend so much time together, and then you come to campus and like your family is not necessarily there. Like if you're from somewhere out of state, if you're from somewhere kind of far away. And so like your friends kind of become your family. Like you guys like look out for each other. You guys like take care of each other. Um, and like that's always like a two-way street. And it was also like interesting having to adjust to that too, and like wanting to find friends who you feel fit into your community and identity, and like who you can like have tougher like individual conversations with. You usually like find people who specifically speak to you in that regard.
We all mentioned that we are from the Midwest, so could you talk a little bit about what that's like living in Michigan, but going to school in Evanston? You're not quite that far, but still far enough. Just like what has that experience been like?
Honestly, I think I love it so much. I feel like it's kind of perfect. I love Evanston. It's like a really cute town. It does feel like a suburb, and I feel like at Northwestern we have like the best of like every world because we do have a small campus. So if you're like on Northwestern's campus, you can feel like you're at college. Like there's like the libraries, the dorms, the dining halls, stuff like that. But then Evanston is just a 15-minute walk away, and then you're in a cute little suburb downtown. There's like restaurants to eat at. It feels very safe. There's like little shopping places, and then if you walk like an additional like 5 minutes from Evanston, you're on the train, and then you can be in Chicago in like 40 minutes. Um, there's so much exploring to do in the city. There's so like the city is so lively. There's so many different cultures, like communities, and like food, like whether you're into food or music, culture, like clothing, there's so much to explore. And whatever you're interested in, like Chicago definitely has it if you can't find it in Evanston or Northwestern. Um, and I do find Evanston to be kind of like a typical Midwestern suburb, so that was also really my speed.
I agree. Like being from Michigan and going to school in Evanston, there are so many similarities, like with the way like foods people eat and like just like how fall is. I love fall, and that's something that I was like really leaning towards when I was choosing a college. Like I want a place that has seasons. Um, but I do feel like Evanston is just it's a great place. Like there's so many like restaurants to go to, like and then Chicago is really close by. So if you're craving that like big city feel or you just want to get out, you have Chicago, and Chicago's a great city for literally anything. Like you want to see like a Broadway show or a concert or like go to art museum, like there's literally something for everyone. And I think like Northwestern, you can go to a lot of those things for free. And you can really like broaden your horizons like while just being a student, which is really great. And I remember my first year, like NU Unites is like one of the groups on campus, and they're always giving away tickets for something. They gave away tickets for to see Book of Mormon, to go to a Bulls game. So there's just so many ways to like go out and do stuff.
Yeah, as a Chicago native, I agree with everything Janea just said. So there's like world class museums and art galleries and comedy clubs. So a lot to keep you busy when you're outside of the classroom. And so while all of our undergraduate schools are in Evanston, we do have 2 graduate schools in Chicago. So you could hop on one of our shuttles to get in between Evanston and Chicago. We also have campus right on the lake, and so it's really easy to get around because it's 1 mile long. And so I know once you get to campus, it'll all be new and it'll seem huge, but after you walk to a few classes, it all gets smaller and smaller and more familiar. So yeah, so thank you for sharing those experiences. Another question I had is after these few years that you've spent on campus, how has your relationship with your Black African American identity changed or remained the same?
I think my relationship with my Blackness has grown a lot stronger. I have a lot of Black friends that I just didn't have in high school because there weren't other Black people to be friends with. And so I think that was something that I really enjoyed, and just like having the space to have those difficult conversations like Kayla was talking about, and like having someone to relate to, and someone who I think especially this year it's been really nice to have Black friends, especially like with everything that's happened this summer, just someone who you don't have to like explain things to, but who understands what is happening, and kind of like you can look to them for comfort instead of like trying to like educate them about racism and anti-Blackness. And that's something that I really enjoy, and I feel like the Black community has done that for each other. And that's just like even outside of just like dealing with trauma and like dealing with like really hard things, like it's just been fun to connect to people like on a cultural level, and like understanding like why you say certain things or like why you like certain things. And that's something that I've really enjoyed, especially being away from home. Just like having that community to look to, and like having those people to lean on to kind of like do things that I would do at home, but finding a way to do it at school too.
I agree. it was like a whole new experience because there were like more Black people to be friends with here on campus. Um, and it's crazy because everyone here is so smart and so insightful and so much learning like about myself and like reflecting on things in my life. And then reflecting on like experiences and interactions that I've had here on campus through so many of our students. Like we have so many like thinkers and writers and creators. People are funny. Like there's like a improv group here just for people of color. Like it's really exciting. They're super hilarious. I love their shows. Like that was one of the first things I saw when I came to campus. But I do think I have become more in touch with and more like proud of my Blackness since coming to campus, which has been a really great experience for me. Not that I wasn't proud before, but it's just awesome to see so many like fellow students in like leadership positions and like doing well. And like there just weren't as many Black people from where I was from to like see them in these positions at all. So like it either had to be me or like it just wasn't anyone else. Um, so it's really great seeing that and seeing Black people excel also in areas that I'm not involved in because I'm a STEM person. Janae's like in journalism, which is like super cool, but like I just have always been in STEM, and it's like awesome seeing Black people in other facets of life too. But also getting to connect within my own communities. Like right now, this past year, I joined the Minority Association of Pre-Med Students. And so that really is a space where I get to be with other Black people and other people of color in STEM. And like we always like chat in our classes and like we talk with each other. We like study together, and that has been, and we like have like fun events together. Like we like play music and games, stuff like that, which has just been a really nice space to connect within like my community of like Black people, and then also my community of like pre-meds. But that's been a really great step for me as well.
And I know, Kayla, you touched on improv groups and a pre-med group for students of color. Janea, are there any African-American Black communities on campus that you've engaged with?
Yeah, I'm a part of the Black Mentorship Program. It's a really, really great space. So I'm a mentor right now. I was a mentee, but it's really a program where like Black upperclassmen connect with incoming Black students, just to kind of, start to build that connection when you're coming in, especially because your first year is like a very like big transition, no matter what your race is. And so I think being a Black student, a lot of times you're dealing with like identity and missing home and like adjusting to a space that's different from where you came from. And so it's been a really great experience so far, especially this year, since students first years are on campus, and so trying to make them still feel connected even though we're not physically together. That's been something really interesting, but I've enjoyed our Zoom calls, even though there are like 70 people on a Zoom call, and that can be a lot at once. But I've really enjoyed that and enjoyed meeting new people, because just because there are Black students on campus, I don't know all of them. So I've still been like meeting new people, and so that's been really fun to do too.
Also, like before I came to Northwestern, I had never had a Black like teacher or professor before. Um, and last quarter, two of my four professors were both Black women. And that was just so exciting for me. Like I loved it so much. It was so like exciting to get to like go to class and like have a professor who looks like you and like go to like office hours and like chat with them and stuff like that. Um, so that was also super exciting for me and something I hadn't really experienced before, and I didn't actually even realize that until this past summer. I was like, oh wow, like this was like a new experience. Like this was something um, that was like new to me, I guess. It was just hard like to realize that, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. In my high school, we had a couple Black teachers, but they all came like my senior year. But I was still like so excited about that. And I think coming to Northwestern and like having the Dean of Medill being a Black person and the Dean of the School of Communications being a Black person, like that's just really cool to me. And just knowing that, just like having that representation has been really, really important for me. And having professors who are also Black people has been just really amazing. And I think a lot of times Northwestern can feel very white, especially when you have a white teacher, white classmates, but just having that, having that perspective is just something that's been really great for me. And also just like what you were saying before, Kayla, about just like knowing how far people who look like you can go. I think just like whenever I have a Black professor, it just reminds me like, oh, like there are people who look like me who've done this and who've done that. And I just think it's like so cool. And I don't know, it always just like motivates me a little bit, just to like see that they're doing great stuff. So I'm like, okay, I have to do good too.
Yeah, and switching over now to academics, y'all are both talking about professors, and so Northwestern has many courses that touch on the local, national, and global Black African American experience. So have either of you taken a class, and if so, what have you learned from that class?
Yeah, I've taken a couple African American studies classes, and they've been really fun. I've learned a lot, I learned more about like the transnational Black experience, which is something I don't have a ton of experience with because I've lived in America my whole life. So that was something that was really interesting. And I remember the fall quarter, I think it was my first year, I took Black Transnationality with Alexander Wahelier. A really great class, but we talked about music a lot of the class. And so it was just really interesting to see what sorts of rhythms and what sort of like musical methods really translated like from Africa to America to the Caribbean. And it was great to have that class because there were students who were like from the Dominican Republic or from Haiti and like from all over the globe. And so it was just like really amazing to have that experience because it really reminded me once again that like Blackness isn't a monolith and that, you know, while we all look similar, we have had very different experiences and have like grown up in different places. And it was just like really cool, honestly, just to like hear everyone's perspective about these things and just to like learn so much about like how music moves through communities and like across borders. Just because like obviously like you hear like Caribbean music a lot of times, or you hear like African drumming and those sorts of things. And it was just like really cool to know like the origin of it and like how it's, you know, translated to like hip hop and R&B. And so I really, really enjoyed that class. And another class that I took was a literature class. And I'm not a huge, despite I'm a writer, and despite being not a writer, I don't enjoy literature classes that much just because it's a lot of reading, which can be hard to manage with other classes, but I really enjoyed this class. It was called the Black Experience, which I was like, oh wait, that's like interesting. But it was really, the books we read were really great. It was an interesting class. The books were just so like something I never thought about because they weren't like the typical like, you know, like Maya Angelou, like Toni Morrison, like those sorts of books. They were very more like abstract, which is something I really enjoyed because I feel like sometimes when you have a Black writer, you kind of expect like that, like sad, like Black story of like a slave and like just a lot of those narratives. But this is kind of like a different version of that. So I really enjoyed the class and really enjoyed like learning that new perspective.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, Janea. And so you are both determined, successful, engaged Black students here on our Northwestern campus, really contributing to that Wildcat community. As you move forward, we're all kind of wondering what you have planned for the future. So what are your plans after you leave Northwestern?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for me, it's very straightforward. I'm planning to go to medical school. I already took my MCAT over the summer. So I'm like glad that's out the way. Um, no, there is not a lot of like representation as far as like Black women within the medical community, and I think it's a super important space to have Black people involved in, especially like I had never taken a class specifically related to like African American studies here at Northwestern, but I did do a bunch of learning over the summer as a part of my job. We had to do a lot of like diversity training and also just like education on different treatment of Black people in the health and medical communities. And you do see so much disparity and so much like mistreatment. So I think it's an important space to have more people of color and especially also women of color, because women are also can be treated very like differently by doctors as well. So I'm like super excited to like enter this space um, and hopefully be a part of like changing it for the better. I also think like I'm interested in like psychology also, so I want to go into like be a psychiatrist. I also think mental health is like a super interesting space, and I think Northwestern does a really great job. But also, especially I found in like my POC communities, we do take more time to check in on mental health and like say like, hey, how is everybody doing today? Actually, like tell us something about your week that was great. Tell us something that was stressful. And we do like put a lot of emphasis on like working on whatever project we're working on, but also like making sure that everybody in our groups is like doing well. Yeah, so as far as my life plan, I'm planning to apply to medical school and then be a doctor later in life.
Yeah, so I'm a journalist and I want to continue journalism once I graduate. I don't want to be like a journalist for all of my career, but I am really interested in like working at the intersection of like art and culture and really like putting the like Black experience at the forefront of the work that I do, whether it's like investigations or like feature pieces. That's something that like I feel because I relate so strongly to my identity. It's like it's only right for me to write about what I know and to connect with the communities that I know, and that's something that so far I've really enjoyed doing and something I really want to continue. And I think also I haven't met a ton of Black women journalists, and whenever I do, I just get really excited. And I really enjoy like hearing about the work that they've done and just seeing how they've been able to really like focus on like politics, but still not forget about their identity or focus on like, like science and the environment and like still being able to bring in the Black perspective and like bringing in like even their like woman perspective, just like making their identity a part of their work. And that's something that I am like really interested in doing. And I'm just like excited to see like what's possible. And I think especially like a lot of discussions in newsrooms have started this summer about like diversity and like making sure that there are people of color in the room. And a lot of times that doesn't happen as well as it should. And you only have like a couple people of color who are writers and not editors or decision makers. So I want to be a part of that conversation and be a part of the conversation of what it means to have equitable and diverse news coverage.
Yeah, thank you both for sharing, and we're excited for all that you're going to do one day in the future. I'm going to have you take it back a bit and think about what advice you would give to senior year if you want to take it back and think of some advice you'd give to prospective students who are considering being a part of the Wildcat community.
So I like to think about, oh, you can go ahead.
Well, one thing I would encourage students to do in high school is to not limit themselves and to take chances, because that's something I felt like when I was applying to college. I was like, oh, I'm gonna just like play safe and like not really try and like break out of my comfort zone and like try new things. And I think a lot of times, like for me, I felt like as a Black student, like my college counselor expected certain things from me and like didn't expect that I would be able to get into Northwestern and like didn't expect me to, get to where I am. And so I think that was something that like I tried not to focus on it that much, but it was definitely something that was like always in the back of my head. And I'm like, oh, if my college counselor doesn't think I'll get in like to Northwestern, why do I think I'm gonna get in? But I think it's really important for you to, know what you want. And like even if you are like struggling with something, just like it's good to just like put yourself out there and good to really like try new things. Like even if people are like, you're crazy for that, like why would you do that? If like something I always try to live by is like, if you're going to regret it later, like do it now. Or like if you're going to regret not doing something, to just do it now. And so that's something that I really encourage high schoolers to do right now, because that's something that I wish I would have lived by in high school and like during the college process, and like trying to figure out what I wanted to do with like the next chapter of my life. So yeah, I just like try to take risk and really put yourself out there in like any way that you think you should or can.
Whenever I like think about this question, I always think about like, what do I wish someone had told me when I first came to college? So that's kind of how I'm going to answer it. And I feel like what I wish or like if I could go back in time, like tell myself, it would be, you're going to change so much in college. I mean, I think most people do. It's totally fine if you say the same. But I think a lot of people go through so much change in college because there's so much new independence. There's so many new people entering your life. There's so many like new experiences and new challenges, and I just learn like that's okay. Like totally accept it. Like lean into it. Just like check in with yourself and make sure that you like this person who you're growing into. But I remember I was so worried when I first came to college that I was changing from my high school self, that I was so different, that everything was going wrong. It was crazy. I was definitely being a little dramatic. But it's totally fair to just take things as they come. and just grow with that, like accept that you're going to be changing. Also, like I like feel like I grew a lot like immediately when I first came to college. Just like I said, I feel like time does move super differently. But then after that, I feel like I changed even more a little bit. So like I came to campus, I made like this group of friends, and we were all like super close. And then like that kind of changed at the end of like my first quarter, and then I was like, oh no, like is it going to be okay? And like it was okay. Like you just have to be okay with things constantly changing. I feel like I'm not really explaining this well. But I guess my main point is it's definitely a time period of growth, and don't really be afraid of that. And I would say like try to like embrace it as a positive thing, and just make sure that you're not necessarily getting lost as things go along. But it's totally fine to feel uncomfortable with that change as it happens.
I agree. I think your first year coming in, and like even like when you're transitioning from high school to college, like that summer, there's just everyone's going through that same change, and there's just so much that you're learning and so much that you're experiencing for the first time, and like your first time like really being away from college for or away from home for most people. And I think everyone's kind of like figuring out who they are and what they want. And so I think that change is just going to happen, and it's really good. I think the person, like, I don't think I'm anything like how I was in high school now, but I'm happy with it. And I think you just have to be comfortable with that, like with growing pains, because you're always changing and there's like so much that you're learning. So it's kind of hard to stay the same, honestly, just because there's just so many new things that are happening in your life.
I agree. Like you go to college and you expect to like learn so much academically, but I feel like you learn more about yourself and about the world and about the way other people work. Um, and that's like one of like the pieces of information, like as you're digesting that, like you might change through that as well. Um, and I think it's just super important to remember that that's totally okay. Um, I definitely stressed out about it, and I would say don't worry about it.
Yeah, I like to tell students that it all works itself out. I know a lot of high school seniors think they need to have it all figured out, and you really don't. And at Northwestern, there's so much flexibility in terms of, different academic programs, social opportunities, different communities you become a part of. Like there are so many available to you. So you don't have to feel like you need to figure it all out. You could get here on campus and figure it out as you go. And that's completely fine as well. So really great advice, y'all. And those are all my questions for today. So I really want to thank you, Kayla. Thank you, Janea, so much for your honest answers. And I want to thank our viewers for watching this video. We understand that this fall looks nothing like any of us planned. Between a pandemic and social unrest, natural disasters across the country, across the world, none of us planned, but we do want you to know as an admissions office that we are here for you if you have any questions, any concerns. We have lovely students who work for the admissions office, and they're always happy to help. And so we hope you've enjoyed this discussion as part of the Purple Prism series, and you all take care and stay safe. Bye, everybody.